Hello, this is Lynn Graham, and this is the second of a number of videos that I intend to do as family devotion. The first thing I want to talk about is the Old Testament prophecies. The reason they are important is because Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah coming, and there's a number of them. And that's one of the best ways you can do to validate it. And one of the interesting things about this kind of a study is it makes your foundation more firm. And I found too that if you have assurance issues, eternal security issues, that once you know who Jesus Christ is, I think a lot of that stuff melts away. It has certainly strengthened my faith, and I think it'll strengthen yours too. So, no matter where you are in your walk with the Lord at this point in time, learning the Old Testament prophecies and learning how Jesus fulfilled them will strengthen your faith. And it also helps you when you read the New Testament too, because when you read the New Testament, even if it doesn't reference back to a particular prophecy, you can infer it in your head. You can say, oh yeah, I remember where the Bible in the Old Testament said something about that. And you'll be rather surprised. And then, how do you know that Jesus really did fulfill those prophecies? Well, there's some reasonable answers to some questions that we'll do in follow-on videos. But let's start from the beginning. It's a very good place to start, as the song goes. In Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Now, a lot of people think that that immediately refers to Mary. It could also just validate the fact that the Messiah will be coming from a woman, and he will be part God and part flesh. And so why is that important? Well, it's important because Jesus had to identify the Messiah. God, in order to identify with us, came down as a person, so that he was a relationship-oriented type of God. He's not dictating from up high. And so that's the kind of God we have, is we have a God-man. Jesus oftentimes refers to himself as the Son of Man. In the Old Testament, he oftentimes is referred to as the Son of God, but there's also illustrations where it's also the Son of Man. But Jesus wanted to make clear that he was relationship. He was God in the flesh, in which he says to Philip, he goes, have I been with you so long that you didn't know that you don't recognize me, Philip? And because Philip had said, show us the Father, then we'll believe. So Jesus was the manifestation of the Father. He is God incarnate. Okay. So we can validate that Jesus did come from a woman. So the Messiah, the anointed one, it's also referred to in the Bible, came from the woman. So he didn't just, like some of the Greek mythology, just come down. He came in the form of the flesh. Okay? And then it starts to get in particulars. And this is what the Bible is interesting about, is that it focuses in on the genealogy of Jesus Christ. So not all families, but just the one specific to his coming. It breaks down into the long trail. Genesis 12:3, he'll be a descendant of Abraham. Genesis 17:19, he'll be a descendant of Isaac, who is also, a descendant of Abraham. So it goes down the list. Numbers 24:17, he'll be a descendant of Jacob. Genesis 49:10, from the tribe of Judah. Isaiah 9:7, heir to the throne of David. And there it says, of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from the time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. One of the first things you'll notice that when you see this is that, well, I don't see him sitting on a throne. That's because he had to come twice. He's come once, and we'll talk about that in future prophecies. And then actually, after his resurrection, he explains to his followers why he had to suffer. And so there's prophecies about that, and we'll cover those too. So if you want to go back and research these, then it's pretty basic, and you'll see that in Matthew goes down the list, and it was important that Matthew did that. He was a government official, and he had access to the records, as anybody did too, and he could validate the claim that he was he was a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and David. which is why he went to Bethlehem, which was the city of David. But that concludes this video, and we'll come back for more.